Hey folks, hey, Brad Miller with you today, and I want to talk about some tools that you might typically bring with you when you're fishing. I don't care whether it's for trout, bass, saltwater, whatever it may be, but there's always a certain number of tools that we should have with us. And I've been able to find a tool recently that I've been using that kind of helps coalesce everything into just basically one tool. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. You know, traditionally, as a trout fisherman, for example, you're going to be running a couple different things. You're going to be having some sort of a nipper, a line cutter like this, and then you're also going to always have a hemostat with you. And the hemostat typically is a clamp, okay, and it's used for popping out hooks, generally speaking. Sometimes you can use a hemostat also for crimping a very small split shot, but they don't have a lot of power that way. Some of the other types of hemostats that I've seen are the curved type, like this, a little bit longer, a little bit bigger. I usually used to carry these all the time for fishing bass and so forth and so on, because you needed a little bit longer one to get down in there sometimes. Same thing here. One of the problems that you see with these hemostats is that they're designed for the operating room, and so if you've got gloves on or whatever, they don't work. You can't get your fingers in there very well. As a matter of fact, you can't get your fingers in there at all. So the hemostats have always been sort of a standby for folks, especially for trout fishing. One of the things, if there is a problem with getting your fingers in there, we've got some of these really cool tools now that I'm going to be talking about from Newcast, that is a company that the owner was in the orthodontic business, so he was in the surgical tool business, and so the tools that they then used and sold in that environment have now been applied to the fishing industry. And so they're surgical grade, they're stainless steel, and they can be used in fresh or salt water. This is an example of one. This is where you've got a larger hole here for a thumb hole, and this is where you don't have to stick your finger in the other side for this one. And this is actually a combination clamp and scissors. So this would be a scissor clamp, okay? But you still got these, and these are really handy if you've got bigger fingers or whatever. The other thing that you're typically going to have with you, that I've always carried with me when I'm trout fishing, I'll carry a small needle nose like this, and that's especially for crimping, almost always for crimping split shot and things like that. Every needle nose that I carry, and it's a good idea to have a needle nose with you, because they also have a wire cutter on them, so that if you have some sort of situation where you got to cut wire, they don't work that great for line, especially thin line, because a lot of times they don't come together good enough to get in a good tight cut. So that's why you're going to use your nippers. We've also got some of these really cool wide grip nippers. This one happens to have a bottle opener on it too, which can come in handy given situations. But as I get into bigger fish, then I upsize the size of the needle nose that I'm carrying. And so I typically would carry one of these. The problem with some of these, of course, is that they do have a tendency to rust, and they can't, they shouldn't probably be used in salt water. There's some saltwater pliers and so forth that you can get. Some of them are extremely expensive. I've looked at some saltwater pliers that are going to cost $150 for a set of pliers. It's ridiculous. But, what's money for? The other thing that I typically carry, that I've talked about before a little bit, is just a wire cutter. Now, I use this a lot for cutting line, although especially thicker line. If I've got a heavier shock tippet, say 30, 40, 50 pound test shock tippet for either toothy critters, or I'm in salt water and I'm fishing tarpon or something. But I like to have these available too, even as sort of an emergency situation. If you do have to cut a hook off, you've got it embedded in your buddy's rear end or something like that, and you can't get it out because you didn't take the barb off, you didn't crimp the barb, you can also use them for that. But the point of this story is a tool that I've found now that I use all the time, that is probably about 5 or 6 different tools in one. It's called a Mitten scissor clamp. All right, this one happens to be from Newcast, and this again was a surgical instrument like this. And what's cool about them is, I'll use the bigger one. What's cool about them is that when you take them to the last notch of resistance that they have here, they open up. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and then if I take it to the farthest one, it'll open it up. So whether I got gloves on, mittens on, or whatever, and that's why they kind of came up with the mitten clamp thing, doesn't matter. But they open up, and there's a spring on them here that just open them up for you, so you don't have to use your fingers to manipulate them like you would with a hemostat. So that's one. Again, you've got both a serrated part for holding something like split shot in place while you're crimping the split shot. And then there's a flat part above here too, just for kind of basic grasping. There's also a surgically sharpened scissors with the Mitten scissor clamp and other types of scissor type clamps. That's really handy and great for cutting line and even light wire. Although I wouldn't really recommend, if you're going to be using wire, that you use your scissor clamp for that, because it will dull them. If you're going to be cutting a lot of wire, have a wire cutters with you. But in most cases, we're not cutting wire, and so they work just fine for cutting line. Now, let's say, for example, that I forgot to remove the glue out of the eye of a fly. You can see here that there's a spike right there, and that spike actually goes into a small female hole on the other end. So I can go ahead and I can put my fly on that spike. I can pop out the glue on that, which sometimes you need to do. The other thing I like about this thing is on the bottom side here, you can see there's a small, approximately 8-inch hole on this Mitten scissor clamp. And what I like the hole for is to, when I'm tightening a fly on, I like to run it through that hole and then pull on it tight to make sure that knot is seated down. It's really a good thing to do. Add a little saliva as the knot's coming together, then pop it in there. And it works better to be able to put it in a device like this than it does trying to do it by hand. You don't slip and poke yourself, or even trying to hold it with a pliers like that also works. But you don't need to do that. And gripping some of your flies and so forth with pliers might damage some of the tying materials. So that little hole in there really comes in handy, and they're available on all of them. Now, again, this is a 7-inch mitten clamp here. They also come in an 8-inch. So if you're going to be dealing with even bigger fish, or you got a big hand and you want something a little bit bigger than this, you can get them at 8-inch. Most of them are the 5.5-inch mitten clamp. Now, this is the regular sort of surgical naked type one. They're all stainless steel, but they've got a number of really cool designs available. We haven't forgot about the ladies. Not that guys can't use pink, not that there's anything wrong with that, but just a nice mitten scissor clamp with a pink foam, what they call new foam on it. You can also get some of them with, this one's black new foam, and it's got a gold finish to it. Again, all stainless steel and all non-rust proof, that type of thing. Just really slick little instruments. They've also got a line called Skin Z, and what this means is they've kind of got a particular pattern that part of the actual it's kind of almost like a powder coating type process where they design this pattern right into the handle itself. This one happens to be a rainbow trout. This one's really cool. I've also got the good old American flag for all you patriots out there, and then we've got a camel one out there. You have to have a camel one available. You can use it for all kinds of cool things. You can also use that hole in the back, by the way, as a lanyard in case you want to hook it onto a neck lanyard or something like that. But let's not forget that basically the main reason this clamp, it's a clamp so that we can clamp it onto our clothing and leave it hang like that, and it's not going to go anywhere. So an incredibly versatile tool. Pliers, a crimper, a scissors, a poker, a line tightener, and just about anything that you're going to need to do when you're on the water, you can do with a Mitten scissor clamp. And you can get them at flybass.com, all the different colors and sizes, and it's a tool that you really have to check out and see to believe. So, hey, Brad Miller with flybass.com. Thanks for stopping by today, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.